Oh, hell yes, wrestling fans. Bombcast is back for 2 weeks in a row. Coming to you from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, I am your host, Zachary Randall. With me, my co-host, coming to you from Erie, PA, it is the King of Darkness, evil Matt Thompson. Matty, how you doing?
Pretty good. I don't want to wake up my daughter, or else I would do the evil impression, but that would be a little bit loud, so...
Yeah, you don't want to wake up the infant. So in case you folks don't know, this is Flying.gaijin.bombcast, what we like to think of as the best, or at least the funniest, analysis of New Japan Pro Wrestling on this side of the Pacific. If you're tuning in, I'm guessing you know what's up right now in New Japan Pro Wrestling. We are in the midst of the G1 Climax 28. Tonight we're going to be talking about nights 11 through 15, starting on the show from the July 30th in Kagawa. But before that, Maddie, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Got some big news this week. I haven't told you off air yet. I figured I'd save it for the podcast. Got a little bit of a promotion at work this week. I just found out on Friday.
Oh, do tell. Tell me.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same position I'm in currently, but a little bit more responsibility and a couple dollars extra an hour, so can't really complain about that.
You can never complain about more money.
Right. And, even bigger than that for me is, I feel like I was starting to kind of stagnate in the position I was at, so it's going to be a nice little change of pace going to a different spot in the school.
Well, good stuff. I'm glad to hear it. Glad to find out about it live on the air with all of the fine Bombcast listeners finding out with us.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. So, kicked off the weekend on a good note because I got the call on the way home from work on Friday, and ending the weekend on a high note as well, talking about some good-ass wrestling with some good family and some good brew. So,
yeah,
can't really beat that.
Yeah, I had a moment a little bit ago. You know the SOD song Milk?
Can't say that I do.
Do you know SOD? Stormtroopers of Death? Okay. Yeah, so they got a song called Milk, and it's about getting up to get a bowl of cereal, and you go to the fridge and there's no milk.
That's brutal.
Yeah, and the song goes something like, I'll just have wheat thins and beer. If I get sick, the toilet is near. Anyway, so it was the reverse for me. I went downstairs to get a beer, and there was no beer in the fridge, and unfortunately I have absolutely nobody to blame but myself because I'm the only one that lives here.
Yeah, to paraphrase Robert Plant, it's nobody's fault but yours.
Damn right, man. So I'm
Cue the riff.
I'm drinking water, being a responsible adult this evening.
Whereas I've got Southern Tier Citra Hopped Live Pale Ale.
I think I had one of those recently. That's I'm fond of the Citra hops.
Yeah, it's a fresh one too, because they're not too far away from upstate New York. So made sure that the born on date was from within the past month or so. So really scored a good one there.
Yeah, very nice. I've been hitting up Total Wine like once a week lately, grabbing some of the stuff that they have on in their seasonal shelves. And I talked about this last week. I grabbed the Cigar City Brewing, the High Life IPA. They've got an oak barrel version of it that I'm very fond of. And this year was the first time I'd ever actually seen it in stores. I could find it at certain bars. So it was a very happy moment for me.
That sounds pretty cool.
Hey, can we do right now stupid fucking tweet of the week?
Absolutely. Go for it.
So, I the last several months, especially while we weren't doing the podcast and I was locked into jail in Juarez, I was staying off of Twitter. I mean, you would think I would be on social media like crazy all day while I'm locked up in a fucking jail, but my phone was lost, you know how it goes. And also, I often find Twitter to be a fucking cesspool. But, I kind of got to get jump back on there and, to promote the show, interact with my favorite wrestling personalities. But unfortunately, as you know, you see a lot of stupid fucking shit on Twitter. And I don't really know how else to put it other than stupid fucking shit.
Painfully dreadful, awful shit.
And in particular, you see a lot of it from wrestling fans because you've got. Yes, I saw an interesting tweet to this. Actually, wasn't a stupid tweet. That basically somebody was saying something along the lines of, you can like both New Japan and WWE, and if you like one, you don't have to tear down the other or whatever. Which is true, by the way. Although to be clear, I don't like WWE, and I will continue to criticize them. But it's not because I like New Japan. If New Japan didn't exist or sucked, I still wouldn't like WWE. But
yeah, the product's just not up to snuff, man.
Yeah, it's not. And even, you know what? As much as you have all these guys that I love in NXT, like Gargano is the fucking man, Ciampa's the man. Probably have Matt Riddle coming in soon. You got Keith Lee. The women's division is amazing. You've got the Undisputed Era guys. It's really good. But then, I hear Morrow, who is, the best commentator in the game right now, calling Tommaso Ciampa a sports entertainer, and I kind of throw up in my mouth a little bit.
Yeah, and he's probably has an adverse reaction to that too, but he's got to do it.
Indeed he does. So anyway, what you end up having happen sometimes, and this isn't everybody, so far be it for me to cast aspersions, there is a certain breed of WWE fan that is blindly loyal to the product. And not only do they not like other wrestling, they don't like when other people like other wrestling, and they don't like it when wrestlers don't want to work for WWE.
Yeah, Rich Fan, PW Torch guy, had a live cast about that last week. The whole concept was, standing for specific companies and, how that can be really problematic. And it was a good listen. Shout out to Rich Fan and PW Torch. We're big fans.
Yeah, Rich is a smart guy, and he has a lot of good stuff to say. So this stupid tweet of the week kind of is what I talked about. And this is it. Gail Kim. Matt, Gail Kim, right? Was a women's wrestler in WWE a while back. And then the last several years, she's been in, for quite a while,
Impact.
she's been in Impact on and off. Anyway, I like her, big fan. She's a really good wrestler. Anyway, but somebody tweets Gail to say, problem is your mindset is still stuck in 2010. If you can't see there's a drastic change with how the division is now handled, it's your loss and really just ignorance at its finest. Gail Kim has basically talked about that she doesn't want to go back because she's already been there, she already knows what happens, and she sees what's happening. So a fan disagrees with her and calls her ignorant. Gail's response is great, is whoever you are, please don't tell me what I should be thinking or feeling. Only I've lived my life and walked in my shoes. So please get lost. You don't know Jack. That is actually a very, very polite response from her considering what was said to her.
Yeah, that's 2 weeks in a row. We've had these idiot fans tweet at wrestlers and had the wrestler respond in a really tactful yet firm manner denouncing these jackasses. So kudos to Gail Kim as well as Cody from last week's response.
It's one of those things. The NXT women's division is actually pretty killer and is going to continue to be killer. Io Shirai's coming in. Toni Storm. Did Toni Storm sign, or is she just there? She's just there for the Mae Young.
I think she's signed. Yeah.
So anyway, sure. You have a lot of talent on the main roster in the women's division, but you have a couple issues in that it's stretched too thin, that you don't need, two divisions and you don't need two belts. And while you have Charlotte and Becky Lynch and Sasha, you have Ronda Rousey, the champions are Carmella and Alexa, both of whom I like. But they play the same character, and they can't really wrestle.
And from what I've heard, their promos are very similar.
Well, like I said, they're the same character. They're playing the same Mean Girl character.
Right. Well, you can still have different characters. They have similar characters and have different promos from each of them week in and week out.
Yeah, I don't know how much variation you're going to do in Mean Girl.
Right. But, they're having the exact same, like it's this whole fake sincere apology, fake sincere whatever, and then they, you know, swerve them at the end where it's just whatever.
So essentially you're doing kind of like they've always done. You have the hot petite girl, and then you have, now the difference is now you have all these like really, really good workers that they're not doing anything with, or they're having fucking Asuka lose to Carmella, shit like that. Yeah, I can't imagine why Gail Kim wouldn't want anything to do with that.
Yeah, it's just doesn't seem like something that she'd benefit from, especially at this stage in her career and her life. Like, why would you blame her for that? It's just moronic.
And again, you know, it's up to any individual worker to you know, go where they want to go. But just the empowerment of social media to verbally assault somebody that you don't know and tell them that they're ignorant for the career decisions that they make is really marvelous. You know, actually, sociologists like 150 years from now are going to be doing some amazing studies about the transformative nature of social media.
Yeah, it'll be a fun era to look back on. Yeah, because you know we've seen definitely the way that television has brought people closer and made things change, just technology in general. It's fascinating stuff.
So, Maddie, let's talk UFC for a minute.
Okay.
Did you see the results from last night?
I believe so, yes.
So you saw that Mighty Mouse lost.
Yes, I did. That was the main one.
Yeah, so DJ has been the only UFC flyweight champion, set the record for the most consecutive defenses at 11, and I think last night, my memory serves me correctly, is the only time he's even been challenged. I think, from what I was hearing from commentators, the finish was, the decision was a little disputed, but it was also the first time anybody's even been that close to him that there could be a disputed decision.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was, I thought that was interesting. The longest reigning champ ever in UFC.
Yeah, I read a tweet today, something along the lines of like, you know, women weren't fighting, Conor McGregor was on welfare, I think Anderson Silva, GSP, like those kind of guys were champion. So the length of that reign is pretty remarkable when you put it in that context.
Well, I think Demetrius, and it's Demetrius Johnson. I realized as I was saying this and I was using his nicknames that not everybody listening to us might watch UFC. I believe he won the title in 2012. He hadn't lost a match since 2011.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. And a lot of that is due to his strategy as far as the fights that he took and didn't take, as well as his skill and ability, which obviously is really high. But, you know, you can say what you will about, you know, the people he was willing to fight and the people he more or less ducked for all those years.
Well, the interesting thing about MMA is nobody goes undefeated. You have boxers, not a lot, but you do have boxers that go, you know, their career undefeated or maybe lose once or twice, you know. Floyd went undefeated. Floyd went 50-0 after his fight with Conor, but Floyd was also very strategic about who he picked. You know, Rocky Marciano retired undefeated. The reason that happened, though, is because his body was shot. He probably would have kept fighting and then eventually would have ended up losing. So it is something that happens in boxing, which is, you know, is the other dominant combat sport in the world. But in MMA, even the best of the best lose, and sometimes the best of the best end up getting their asses whipped.
Yeah, badly. Yeah, who was it that really knocked Chuck Liddell the hell out? Was that Rashad Evans? That his first big defeat by knockout?
Was that Rashad that beat him? Because when Chuck went downhill, Chuck went down like fast.
Yeah, that was a precipitous decline, indeed.
I'm gonna look that up real quick. This is great podcasting for all the people here. Me looking up Chuck Liddell's fighting record. No, it was Quentin. It's Rampage that beat him.
Okay.
Rashad did beat him though. Yeah, but both Rampage and Rashad knocked him out.
Yeah, that's one that I remember vividly. That was probably the era when I was most into UFC. Was right around that era when like the 205 guys were just that division was just stacked. That was one. I mean, that's another thing too of just fandom in general. Is when you first get into something, that's when you're probably gonna remember it most fondly.
That was a good era though, because you had a lot of, you kind of caught the tail end of Randy Couture there because, that was the end of his career, and Liddell fought him. Overeem was around. Rampage, that was the end of Tito's career. Keith Jardine was around. Wanderlei Silva.
Yeah, you had Machida and Shogun. Those guys had a couple wars there. Yeah, that division was stacked for quite some time there.
What's interesting is, and I'd gladly hear a counter to this, but I went back and I was watching some of fairly recently, by fairly recently I mean within the last year, I was watching some of Liddell's old fights, and not that I would ever want to stand across from him in a fight even today, but I was watching his technique, and do you ever notice how he held his hands?
Pretty low most of the time, right?
Yeah, and it's no shocking that when things started going south for him a little bit, he was just getting knocked the fuck out. And I mean, in fact, almost every time that he got beat was by knockout, except for like one or two. And so it's one of those things where he was depending on, pure physical skill. And that's why he get away with having those hands down. And when the skill started to go, when the speed started to go, well, you're going to get knocked the fuck out because your hands aren't in the right position and you never trained to do that.
Right. And that's just a different era. The level of skill was, not quite there.
Well, you figure about how long, MMA's been around. Yeah, it's been around for a minute now. You figure in the late 80s it got started in Japan, in the U.S. in the early 90s. So you've had a few generations of fighters now for this to get sorted out. I mean, you remember the first, especially like the first 10 cards. Nobody knew what to do about a jiu-jitsu guy.
Right. Yeah, giant dudes getting tapped out by some tiny little dude in a gi, and it was the novelty of the whole sport.
I mean, that was
started out.
That was the whole reason it was created. At least that's why.
It's like the whole impetus for the whole deal in the first place. Yeah, just to show off the superiority of the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu fighting system.
And that's why they went with Royce in there, because he's one of the smaller brothers, and he was beating these giants.
Yeah, pretty fascinating stuff when you think about it.
Yeah, it's still fun to go back and watch that stuff. Although what is funny is listening to the commentary, because of course there weren't MMA commentators yet because it didn't exist, but they had Jim Brown, legendary Cleveland Brown Jim Brown as the as one of the, like, that was like one of the attractions. That's one of the reasons you'd buy the pay-per-view, I guess, is because Jim Brown was a commentator.
Probably expect a lot of buys in my neck of the woods.
You think so?
Probably. I mean, I would imagine. I don't know.
I mean, was that the, I'm not gonna. I was gonna say that was the last time the Browns were good, but I guess they had a couple moments there in the mid '80s.
Derek Anderson took them to the playoffs that one year. That was quite a little ride there.
So yeah, the last time they were good was around the mid '80s.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, it's always fun when a quarterback, like, just is good out of nowhere and then has like this little run. And then it happens all the time that then they're never good again after that. And that was the case with Derek Anderson. But then sometimes you have that guy that has the brief run. Like, I Jake Delhomme, you remember him? He played for the Panthers, and he had like the one year that the Panthers went to the playoffs and lost to the Patriots on the Vinatieri field goal. Delhomme had like a few good quarters in the playoffs that year, and he ends up being the starter for the Panthers the next several seasons.
Yeah, and speaking of Panthers, I think Derek Anderson, he was backing up Cam Newton for quite a few years recently. I don't know if he's still in the league, but I think he maybe even filled in for Cam in a couple games and didn't stink up the joint too bad, as I recall. So,
I mean, he was playing through last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was.
Shouts out to Derek Anderson.
If you ever remember the old football blog, Kissing Susie Colbert, they nicknamed him Horseballs.
Do I want to know why?
They just wanted to give him a badass nickname. Fair enough. It's like this. It's just he needed a nickname because he kind of came from out of nowhere, and you needed sort of a. Or maybe that was. I'm trying to think. Maybe that was Deadspin. Well, because a bunch of the Deadspin, like Big Daddy Drew from Kissing Susie Colbert is ended up at Deadspin, but maybe it was. I actually think it was a Deadspin article where he got nicknamed Horseballs. Oh yeah, and they actually made up they did like a whole bunch of made up facts about him.
Almost like Chuck Norris facts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here, let me read.
Speaking of, go ahead.
Let me read. So they listed these facts about him, and it was all like really boring stuff. Like his nickname is DA, Derek Anderson. It's like, come on, you gotta do better than that. His favorite movies are Remember the Titans and Happy Gilmore. I mean, so let's go through the fake facts, okay? Derek Horseballs Anderson was born in Scappoose, Oregon in 1983. His father was a world champion log roller. His mother was a sassy waitress at a Greasy Spoon. Derek was conceived in a wheelbarrow. Derek's mother gave birth to him while sliding down a log flume. The afterbirth was fed to a baby ox.
Nice.
Derek spent a lot of time as a child at his father's lumber operation, twice a week, fulfilling the duty of barrel boy.
Lovely. Yeah, and speaking of Drew McGarry, that Why Your Team Sucks series has got to be coming back soon.
Actually, he is back. Both of our teams have. Well, I guess I don't know. It depends on from minute to minute who your team is. But your local team and my team have both already been featured because they both fucking sucked.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and read those then. That'll be fun. It always gets you juiced up for the season reading those.
It's funny when you read because the Browns have won one game. So yeah, one game over the past two seasons. And it was funny. There was somebody writing last year that like he had some reporter had watched film of the Browns and was insisting that while they were a 1-15, they were a 1-15 team. They were a good 1-15 team, Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, what the fuck ever. But yeah, it's almost like I don't even think you can even count the Browns as a professional football team anymore, just because. I don't know. It's just sort of a slapdick operation.
Yeah, that's probably one of the most apropos ways to put it.
And hey, listen, my team is run by a pillhead who posts porn on Twitter and basically owns the team because of generational wealth. So it's not like my shit's much better.
Yeah, that's a pretty shoddy organization as well. Absolutely.
So enough time talking about shit other than New Japan. We just basically had 86% drop off of all of our listeners at this point. And I should have already said already to please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, but everybody's dropped off. So shit.
Yeah, the 14% who's remaining, go ahead and do that now while you still can.
Yeah, please do. So we're going to talk about New Japan Pro Wrestling now. We're going to talk a little G1 Climax. Before we dive in, though, a little announcement and give you guys a heads up for what's coming up the next few weeks. So obviously next Sunday is the final for the G1 Climax. So we're actually going to make sure to get our show done earlier in the day than we normally record. So we have a show that gets released at a reasonable time on Sunday, and we'll talk about the final of the G1 Climax and, where we think that's going to lead for, like Destruction and Power Struggle and King of Pro Wrestling, and then into, Wrestle Kingdom next January. After that, between the G1 Climax finale and the first big Destruction show, it's a month. And it's quite likely that I'm going to be incognito there for a while. I've been described by some as an international man of mystery, so I'm going to be off being mysterious in foreign lands. So Maddie's going to fly solo for a couple weeks, we think. And I'll probably jump back in on this idea that Matt has. I'll let him explain in a second. And putting the pressure here on you live to actually get this shit done, by the way, Matt. We'll let Matt explain the idea. And then when mid-September rolls around, we'll be jumping back into covering the big New Japan events. And you have the three big Destruction events that happen in September. Maddie, so tell the people about your idea.
Yeah, so anybody who's familiar with the PW Torch series Way Back Playback that was done a couple years ago would be familiar with this. So what I'll probably do is I'll queue up a couple matches and do some kind of alternate commentary as the matches are running, and give my analysis of what's going on and the importance of these matches. I'm thinking to keep it not too retro or too dated, something New Japan related, something from within the last couple of years that's still got relevance to today. And actually, I have the matches picked out. Should I run them down right now?
Yeah.
So the first episode, and this is all tentative, it might not necessarily go down exactly as I'm saying now, but thinking the first episode will be Wrestle Kingdom 8, talking about Prince Devitt versus Kota Ibushi. For various reasons. Obviously, Ibushi's having a mega awesome run, and this was back to a time when he was a junior heavyweight, so it's a little bit change of pace there. And Prince Devitt obviously is more well known now as Finn Balor in WWE, and just getting a glimpse of how the Bullet Club has evolved over that time period as well. So there'll be some running themes throughout that can be discussed. And then for that same episode, I'll do two matches. And the second one will be Kota Ibushi versus Shinsuke Nakamura from Wrestle Kingdom 9, which was the first show that I watched from New Japan, and the match that really made me fall in love with the product in general. So I'll be really looking forward to covering that.
That is when I fell in love with Shinsuke.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun to talk about. And then for the second episode, will be two matches from Wrestle Kingdom 10. I wanted to talk about Kenny Omega back before he was the leader of Bullet Club and before he was heavyweight. So we'll be covering him versus Kushida, who, for my money, is probably the most underrated wrestler in the world. And also from Wrestle Kingdom 10, we'll be covering AJ Styles versus Nakamura. Their last night, their second to last night in the territory, in the company, before they went to WWE. So that'll be a fun one to discuss for several reasons.
That was when you know what ends up happening very shortly thereafter, it makes the match even more interesting. And it's really like, it's the two top guys on SmackDown today, and it wasn't that long. Actually, you watch that Wrestle Kingdom 10, and then you watch the shows from the end of the previous year leading up to Wrestle Kingdom 10, and you see all those guys that are in WWE now. It's actually, it kind of, whipsaws you a little bit.
Yeah, things have really evolved in those few short years, and New Japan's done a great job of just keeping the momentum going positive after, lots of key departures there.
Yeah, they definitely kept things rolling along well. And it helps that when your biggest star is in his late 20s and hasn't even hit his peak yet, whereas Okada's 30 now, so.
Yeah, but still, that doesn't take away from the fact he's got a lot of good years ahead of him.
Oh, no, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. He has a ton of good years left. So next couple weeks after the G1 final, Maddie will be doing that. Unless my plans change, and then hopefully when I am back, we'll do a couple more weeks like that where we sort of do we do a tandem alternative commentary thing on some other matches, and we'll probably keep it modern. I haven't heard anybody clamoring for our retro match reviews in a while, so I don't know if we're going back to that gimmick anytime soon.
Yeah, that's fine. That stuff was great, and I would encourage anybody to go back and watch it. But the stuff is just so good now, and it's really hard to not just get immersed in it. So that's what we plan on continuing to do for sure.
So that's a great point, and I'm going to use that to lead into digging into the G1 here. The current stuff is great, and I feel like, and I say this sincerely, I as a lifelong wrestling fan, and I do mean lifelong. I mean, I probably said this before, but I'm going to say it again. I've been watching wrestling since I was 5 years old. I am 41 years old right now. I have been doing this my entire life. I have been watching wrestling longer than I've known how to ride a bike, okay? Not that I really care to ride bike, but... And I've had a lot of eras where I've enjoyed it. When I was a little kid, during the whole rock and wrestling era, I was way into it. Very, very much enjoyed the Attitude Era. It was cool because I was in college and there was a big group of us that hung out together and watch it. When I discovered NXT in 2014, that was a really awesome time for me to be watching wrestling. But I have never enjoyed wrestling like I have now, and this tournament has really driven home to me that I think that this is, for me at least, the best that professional wrestling has ever been.
It's really hard to argue with that. Yeah.
So let's jump in here, Matt. Night 11, this is July 30th. A-block action, take us into it.
Yeah, so we start out with Makabe and Fale. What do you think, first of all, before we get going in the actual matches, what do you think of Tonga Loa's little introductions for these guys going into these matches?
He's got a good little rap going on there. Tonga's actually pretty good on the mic. He's got a cool intro going for Fale. And it's actually good. I think that's actually a good thing for Fale because Fale is on his own not an interesting character. Because he's just a big guy, right? And
right.
Tonga giving him the little speech there kind of gives him some color that he wouldn't normally have. And this has like become it's sort of a New Japan staple now almost, having the hype man. Gedo hasn't come out for Okada since I don't know when. He hasn't been coming out the whole tournament. But, obviously you had Gedo doing the hype man thing for Okada for a very long time. And you have Taka doing his hype man routine for Zack Sabre Jr., which I really enjoy. And then, you have Tonga doing this, doing the hype man routine for Fale. Hell, I wouldn't remember that Fale was an Intercontinental Champion if Tonga wasn't pointing that out. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I'm digging it. I feel like it gives Tonga Loa a little bit of a reason to be out there other than to just distract and interfere and cause ruckus. So, and then it also reminds you that he's gonna do all those things during the match, so it gets you kind of hot for the guys before the match even starts.
So yeah, that being
pretty effective.
So that being said, while I enjoy, Tonga doing the intro for Fale, I'm fucking sick of the firing squad's bullshit. Like, I know it's a heel thing and I'm supposed to not like it, but I don't like it and I'm fucking over it. And I'm really fucking over it because Tama Tonga, and we'll talk about him some later, is a hell of a wrestler. He can work, he can go, and we're not getting any of that in this tournament.
Yeah, we're really not. It's a damn shame. So this match ends with Makabe's chain getting wrapped around Fale's wrist and arm, and big clothesline, and Tonga Loa tosses the ref back into the ring for Fale to pick up the victory. So cheap win, and it's just it's a damn shame after a while.
And it's been a common thing for the Tongan matches in this tournament, because it's either a finish like that or it's a DQ.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same formula every time out.
So next is Jay White and Hangman Page. These guys had a hell of a match earlier this year at the Strong Style Evolved in Long Beach back in March. And these two guys are, they're up-and-comers and to a certain extent to the future of the business.
Yeah, both of these guys have really looked impressive despite Hangman Page not having the best record. This is really a good display for him, especially a couple of matches that we'll talk about later on. But this one, it starts out, pretty hot and heavy. We got, nasty Saito suplex on the floor. White's Saito suplex looks really good, really effective every time he pulls it off. And Kevin Kelly also mentions on the mic, leading into the match, that White's had a fantastic year, taking out Omega, Tanahashi, and Okada all in the same year. So,
I mean, that should tell you what they've got planned for him. They do push people up a little slow, so I wouldn't expect him to be main eventing the big shows yet. But I mean, that's probably just a year or two off for him.
Yeah, he's definitely on that road. His offense looks really good. His selling's awesome as well. His character's really starting to come into its own. He's just becoming such a nasty dickhead character that it's really working for him. So, a little bit, sanding off the rough edges, and he'll be ready to go.
I think I have sung my praises of Hangman Page before. I don't necessarily need to repeat it now, other than to say he is a future superstar and future main eventer, whether it's going to be here in New Japan, or in Ring of Honor, or in NXT and WWE. But the guy's a main eventer. I don't think there's any two ways about it.
Yeah. A little bit of jeopardy on that, though. He took a pretty nasty bump in this match. White shoves him off of the top rope onto the apron. Pretty nasty collision there. Makes you worry about a guy when he's taking risks like that. But
well, I think we're going to talk about
too much worse for the wear coming out of that. So
we're going to talk about this some more as the as we're talking about these past several days of matches. All of these guys got to stop taking the bumps that they're taking.
Yeah, it can get kind of scary after a while, especially when you got all these matches in such quick succession.
So, Maddie, when we first started talking about this match, you were mentioning, Kevin Kelly a bit. How are you feeling about Kevin Kelly and Rocky on the tournament?
Still, doing fantastic work. I think we mentioned it last week, and it's keeping up to that level. A little bit of chicanery here and there, a little bit of goofiness on occasion, but for the most part, they really add levity and tell the stories that need to be told for these matches to really come off. So they really add to the product, I think.
Rocky's a little goofy at times, but his goofiness is sort of, it's still playing in the angles a little bit, and then he's like playing into it backstage and everything, and a lot of it's him and Okada having fun. And they've been him and those two have been doing their back and forth thing forever on Twitter anyway. Mm-hmm. And frankly, I'm a big fan of Rocky as is. And I would actually rather have this than Don Callis getting himself over.
Yeah, I agree.
So, Switchblade ends up going over with the Blade Runner for the win in this match. Unfortunately, the match ended with a low blow, which sort of... I don't care how good the match is, but that's when how it ends is like the refs turn back, has their back turned. It's a low blow, and then the guy hits his finisher. It's heel heat for Switchblade, but I mean, I don't know. I don't ever want to see a match end that way.
Right. Yeah. Paige has kind of had a similar route as the Tongans throughout this tournament, as far as all of the interference and dirty tricks here and there, and it's not as grating when he does it because he's on his own and he really does have good matches around those stories. It's not just, oh, here we go again with another fuck finish before we even get going.
I actually heard somebody suggest a good spot for Jay White would be to end up as the leader of the Tongans.
Yeah, I think that's the Todd Martin theory, as it were.
Was it Todd that said that? I end up consuming so many podcasts throughout the week that I cannot fucking remember who said what.
Yeah, I'll give him credit for that one because that was him who said that for sure.
Okay, so moving on, next match, King of Darkness Evil against Minoru Suzuki.
Yeah, as to be suspected, lots of brawling in this match. We got the old Mike Cable being choked around Evil's neck, and Suzuki, with a lot of chair shots on the floor and all that fun stuff. So, yeah.
Yep, sorry. You know what? I love these matches with Red Shoes because Red Shoes just like chastises and sasses the fuck out of the wrestlers, and it actually tends to be a lot of fun. And they actually don't abuse Red Shoes like they do Marty Asami.
No, not typically. It's a pretty rare occasion that does happen, and it usually garners way more heat when it happens to you because he's got a little bit more gravitas as a ref.
Well, yeah, dude, I have to tell you, having seen like 3 big New Japan shows in person in the States, dude, your promotion is over when your fucking lead official is over.
Yeah. That's true. Very rarely does the ref get that kind of clout. I feel like Tommy Young is up there. I don't know if you count the Hebners on that level, but yeah, it's quite rare.
Indeed. Anyway, Suzuki ends up going over here with the Gotch pile driver. Anything that you wanna add to that?
Just the sleeper hold that Minoru locks on immediately before that Gotch. He like yanks Evil around into the floor, and he's absolutely out of it before Suzuki picks him back up in that position, and then puts that Gotch on. Just looks really really brutal and really adds that kind of sadistic edge that Suzuki's got. Really good looking stuff.
Yeah, I think it was maybe it was Callis that like a year or two ago was sort of working the angle that Suzuki was letting the sleeper go too soon to go for the Gotch. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it should be kind of like the like when Sonata locks on the skull end before a moonsault, or something along those lines. That guy should be totally out before that move gets slapped on. It should kind of just be like an insult to injury type of thing almost.
Well, I always liked what Shibata did, where he would do the choke into the PK, and I thought that set it up right because he's not trying to put him out completely. He's just trying to like stun him a bit.
Yeah,
just so he can kick the fuck out of him.
Yeah, that's a brutal setup for sure. That looked great every time he did it.
So After that, we have Hiroshi Tanahashi and Yoshihashi. By the way, if you like, you're new to New Japan, like hearing Hiroshi Tanahashi against Yoshihashi just has to confuse the ever living fuck out of you.
Yeah, there's really, sadly, there's not much you can do to work around that.
So, an angle that started getting played in the tournament a little bit is that sort of what's the future and what's the high end for Yoshihashi. And something we actually kind of saw coming out of this weekend is, Tanahashi, who of course Tanahashi goes over in this match, is that, Tanahashi actually wants to like work with Yoshihashi more. And I'm sort of wondering if what's not happening is that, that Yoshihashi ends up feeling constrained by being in Chaos. And you look at all the guys that are in Chaos, and he goes off and forms a new stable with somebody.
Yeah, that was a big theme in this match. There's a lot of back and forth, both before and after the match, verbally between these two along those lines. And it's by no means has Yoshihashi had a bad run as far as his performances are concerned. He has put out really good matches with pretty much everybody. It's just kind of for naught when you think about, well, I can pretty much guarantee the result of this match before it starts. Well, Yoshihashi's got 4 points now, as we speak, and he only had 2 going into this match. Only had 1 win. So it's going to be a good performance, but the opponent's going to go over. So
I mean,
yeah.
So he can go, but almost everybody in New Japan can go. He's lacking in charisma a little bit. I'm not for sure what his character is. He dropped the loose explosion thing, and he's the headhunter now. I don't know why he comes out with that big baton. I don't know if there's a story behind it that you know, but it seems fairly odd to me. He actually doesn't seem enthused about what's going on. And again, I don't know if that's like the character, if it's part of an angle, or if he's just not into it. But he doesn't seem into it.
No, yeah, he's just kind of, his facials are just kind of always neutral. He just always looks, maybe a little bit nervous, or, I don't know. It's just, there's something missing.
And the thing is, I mean, I guess he could be nervous, but I mean, the dude's been in the game for quite a while. He's not a young guy.
No, he's been around since I've been watching, so, and probably quite a few years before that as well. So, yeah, kind of awkward stuff. So it's just pretty basic, straightforward match. The one thing that I really remember from this one is that Yoshihashi hits a kind of almost an Emerald Fusion style pickup slam that looked really, really badass, and for most guys probably should have ended a match, but it's Yoshihashi, so it's not going to end anything.
And it's Tanahashi, who, I mean, I think you actually have to bring you have to do like one of those old Attitude Era WWE stunts where you actually like bring in like a bulldozer and drop a half ton of dirt on him, and then maybe that'll like finish Tanahashi, but otherwise, I don't know what the fuck you're gonna do.
Right. Match had a little bit of a novel conclusion, I suppose. Yoshihashi hit those really cool looking double knees that he does, a kind of sliding double knee, almost looks like a soccer slide, right? Like a guy scores a goal and he does a little celebration afterwards. So it looks like that, and do a little roll up, but then he goes for the butterfly lock, but Tanahashi reverses it into a cradle, almost like a Maestral cradle, and then that's the end of the match right there. And that does it.
And then sort of playing into the angle that we talked about a minute ago, in his interview, Tana mentions that he was challenging Yoshihashi to do better. So I would not be shocked to see a new Tanahashi centered stable within the next few months.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. There's a lot of things that are in flux with a lot of the different factions right now. So, You can see guys splintering off in all directions and teaming up with the Ace.
The main event for Night 11 is Michael Elgin and Kazuchika Okada. Okada, I don't know if Okada's had a break from reality since losing the title, if it's just the sort of release of not carrying the entire company anymore, but so he's being fucking weird, and I noticed, he had a few matches between, that I haven't seen, like, I know he had a match with Suzuki and over in the UK, but like when I was at the G1 show in San Francisco, that's the first time I saw him do the Scooby-Doo thing, and I'm like, the fuck? He's been.
Yeah. What is that? What do you say to that? It's so bizarre.
No, what you say to it is the fuck.
Yeah. Indeed.
He's doing the whole balloon thing with Rocky. And then, like, Rocky just being, like, continually distraught over it, insisting that Okada is, in fact, his best friend.
Yeah, their interaction is interesting as well.
But
I don't know what to make of it, honestly.
I mean, so the thing is, it's funny, so Okada's obviously in a little bit of a different role right now. And if you ever see Okada on social media, he's actually a little bit of a goofy guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you see some pictures of, like, he's in the U.S. or Finn Balor's in Japan, and those two are clearly, like, good buddies. And just see him, like, the dorky pictures they take together. So, yeah, he seems like he's a little bit of a goofy guy. So you got a little bit some weirdness coming out. But on top of that, he's also... He's being a little heelish too. There's a mean streak to him.
Yeah, and almost like a fuck off attitude. That's not even necessarily arrogance, like in the sense of Kenny Omega, where it's like, well, I'm the best, I'm gonna prove it. It's almost like like I just don't really give a fuck anymore because I've done all there, not done all there is to do, but I was the champion for so long and I don't have to worry about it anymore. So I'm just gonna say and do whatever I want.
I think you talk like the main, the IWGP World Title. I think the only record for that title that he doesn't have is the most combined defenses, and I think Tana still has that.
Yeah, so that's probably gonna happen by the time he retires. There's very little doubt in my mind.
I mean, yeah,
some kind of freak accident.
Again, the guy's 30 years old, and he'll have this title again within a year. I'm very sure of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, just going along with this whole theme of weird Okada, the backstage comment before the show, the previous night, Okada used the word baka at least 5 or 6 times in reference to Michael Elgin. And baka means dumb in Japanese. So he went off on a tirade about that and then kind of half-heartedly apologized in the same promo. But then during the match, during the introductions, he's like doing this weird flexing, almost like a Goldberg bit, where he's got the tongue out and acting like a big, steroid freak or whatever. Just, continuing with the weirdness. And, you got that guy standing across from you. It just doesn't seem like the wisest move to goad him into wanting to beat the hell out of you, but that's Okada for you.
So this actually reminds me of an interaction we had a couple weeks ago where I said that Elgin reminds me of Bluto from Popeye. And here's where, like, the generational thing comes in for this, because, in case you guys don't know, I'm 14 years older than Matt. Matt is vaguely aware of who Popeye and Olive Oyl are, but he doesn't know who Bluto from Popeye is, who, is like the main villain in the cartoon and the comic strip. And it was I felt disappointed because a joke fell flat, but then it would be like me, making a reference to watching Johnny Carson growing up, and Matt's like, yeah, dude, Johnny Carson was probably dead by the time I was born or whatever.
Yeah, he had definitely retired by then, I'm sure.
So yeah, I'm becoming that old guy now. What do you mean you don't know who Bluto is?
Yeah, I can't help you there, man. But I did look up a picture of him on Wikipedia, and the comparison is apt. I will give you that.
So because when Elgin had the big beard, he looked like either Bear Hugger from Super Punch Out, which is apt because Elgin is Canadian, and then he also looked like a muscled version of Uncle Bob.
Yes, indeed, he did.
And none of you guys know who Uncle Bob is except for us, but we got it. Well, I actually have more than one Uncle Bob, but the Uncle Bob that we really, really like.
Right, yes. Robert, as he is affectionately referred to.
Yes, and that is actually the French spelling, the French pronunciation of Robert, Robert, but they didn't spell it like that, but it's... Anyway.
But we digress.
Yes.
So, yeah, there's... So, speaking of Elgin just being this freakish dude, he's hitting topes early on. He's picking Okada up and carrying him up onto the second rope. He's just freakish, man, in every way. Dude that big should not be able to hit such, agile moves, and the fact that you can pick up a guy Okada's size and just carry him up like it's nothing.
Well, dude, his fucking enziguri, like the way that he just sort of explodes off his feet and gets that vertical.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the kind of the tope is one thing, because you maybe can like, kind of slingshot yourself or whatever, you're running or whatever, but dude, with a enziguri, you're standing still.
Yeah, it takes quite a bit of hops to be able to get a leg up that high just off of a straight standing position, for sure. So yeah, you got that going on. We got Okada being really vicious. Hits a DDT on the floor and then hits a draping DDT off the rail to the floor.
Okada's been doing that DDT on the floor more than once, and he's putting some fucking stank on that DDT.
Yeah, and he's got the kind of a vengeful, or really piss and vinegar type of look in his eyes when he's doing it too. It's it's not it's got a malicious intent behind it.
I think. Well, I mean, I remember when I first started really getting back into New Japan, which was the like you, was the Wrestle Kingdom 9 era. And when I first started watching, I mean, Okada was definitely framed as a heel. And then as his reign goes on, I mean, the guy's just so good. How can you not cheer for him? Sort of in that like Ric Flair sort of way. And then now that he's not champion, the character's a little different. He's an asshole again.
Yeah. And, I think it works well for him. I think that he's got that look about him where you can really buy into to him having that kind of air of arrogance and just kind of whatever attitude. I don't know if what the best adjective would be for that. Kind of just a dismissive arrogance, I guess.
The phrase I would use is punk ass bitch.
Fair enough. Yeah, I can see that as well. So yeah, we got down the stretch here. Elgin throws pretty much everything he's got. He catches a drop kick attempt from Okada into a really sick looking sit out power bomb, hits Splash Mountain, and then he tries for a burning hammer. So that he's really pulling on all the stops when he goes for that burning hammer. But then Okada reverses that into a tombstone, hits the spinning or discus Rainmaker, and then hits another Rainmaker for the win. So, we see that Rainmaker in matches. But what do you think of this new variant, this discus style Rainmaker?
So he's been really like laying in the Rainmakers, I feel like, in this tournament. But I mean, doing like a fucking discus lariat is just like. I mean, again, I think he's been vicious, and I think that's like, yeah. I mean, that's just. I hate to use this phrase again. I don't hate. I don't want to be repetitive, but he's putting some fucking stank on those clotheslines, dude.
Yeah. It doesn't quite have the same ripcord effect because he's got to do that spin around, but he's compensating for it by really making huge impacts off of that spin. So it's still pretty effective, I think.
And so real quick. So speaking of Elgin doing, doing the burning hammer, how do you feel about when we finally get around to starting our metal band side project? Can we call it Burning Hammer, or should that be like the name of an album?
I don't know. I definitely hold on to that title for one or the other. Yeah.
Although the thing is like calling a band Burning Hammer, that's very power metal, and I don't think that's what one of our records would end up being.
Prob's not. Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah,
I've got a couple titles in the back of my head. I'm gonna keep them to myself for now.
Okay.
Though.
Yeah, we don't want to give it all up. But speaking of records, we're actually starting PR for my band Northern Crown. Now our next record. We're starting the PR in probably about a week or so.
Nice. You got a tentative release date?
October 12th, which is probably the first time it's been announced publicly. Although I think the Venn diagram of Flying Gaijin Bombcast fans and Northern Crown fans are basically friends and family, so they probably already know anyway.
Right on. Well, I'll be looking forward to it. I will certainly be copping that shiz.
I will probably talk about it more on the show later. I think it's fucking awesome. I actually think it's the best thing I've done in my life, like, period, personally, professionally, romantically. I don't know what else to say, because I think it's like it's fucking awesome. It sounds like a heavy rock record from the 70s, just with like a nasty heavy metal edge to it. And some modern shit, like it's tuned down really low, and we sneak some black metal and some thrash in there on occasion. You've got me screaming like I'm possessed by banshees, and then
Sounds good.
So back to New Japan. So the Elgin Okada match. That was the last match from night 11. So let's move on to night 12, which is in Kagoshima. B block action. We're starting off with the Stone Pitbull Tomohiro Ishii taking on Tama Tonga. Fuckery.
Yeah, bitch ass hoes and flaming Doritos.
So yeah, I mean, basically, Tom ends up winning with a gun stun, countering out of a brain buster. Fale hits a grenade on Ishii. Loa pulls the ref out. It's the typical fuckery you've been getting. I get what's going on. I think I heard Meltzer make this point over the weekend that what Gedo is sort of doing with the Tongans is sort of like the way that like Tiger Jeet Singh was booked back in the day. So it's something he sort of grew up with. So I mean, from that perspective, I get it. I can imagine sort of what he's thinking. I don't like it.
Yeah. It took a while to really start grading on me, but once it did, I'm just over it.
So, I don't think there's anything else to say about that match. Juice Robinson and Sonata.
Yeah, lots of early dive attempts in this one. It was kind of funny, one man would go to the floor, miss, the other guy would run in and just repeat. There was a very early skull end out in the crowd, and Juice had to run in probably about a 14 or 15 count by the time he got in. So lots of fast-paced kind of near fall type of things early on. I got Sonata doing all these crazy dives, and just makes you think that this guy's got just an athleticism that's almost unparalleled, because you got the likes of Ibushi, and most other areas he'd probably be in a class among himself, but there's so heard much depth in this promotion. It's crazy.
So I've heard a critique of Sonata, not one that I necessarily agree with, that he's sort of lacking on the charisma front. And I can see why someone would think that. I've never found him to be lacking in charisma as much as that he was just more stoic, and that sort of worked with him next to like Evil and Naito. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean that LIJ's got a lot of eccentric personalities, and you really don't want to do too much to detract from guys like Evil and Naito and Hiromu. Like they're all very, out there. They're all unique, and if you're gonna kind of be the guy in the back, just playing it cool, then that works. That provides a contrast. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
So Juice goes over here, wins with the pulp friction. He actually hits his big left hand. He's been pulling his cast off in the tournament, and they're actually saying now that his hand is healed, and he's actually been using his big left hand again.
Yeah, both guys kind of did like a little, I don't know what you want to call it, like a little whirly thing where they go around and around with the wrists, clasped, and each trying to hit that pulp friction. And then Juice finally, hits that big left hand and just goes for it. So that loss takes Sonata out of contention for the B block, and we got so many guys so far ahead that it's really hard to continue on. We only got 6 points.
Yeah.
So
how do you feel about Juice in this tournament so far?
I don't know. I think he said it best himself. He said that once he's won this U.S. title, he's taken like 10 steps back, and he just kind of seems lost and distraught over the whole deal. So,
well, I mean that's character, though. I mean, how do you feel about his work, and I mean the booking? Because what I feel like they're doing is Juice hasn't shown that he can be like a front runner yet, so they're trying to keep him in the underdog position for this match. And then with the losses that he's taken in the tournament, he's going to have a bunch of people lined up for, title shots. And it's going to be there's going to be some like really heavy hitters that he's going to face with that title on the line. So what do you think about it from that guy? So obviously, the character perspective is that he's frustrated, and he's not showing what he needs to show, but I'm not necessarily talking about it from that angle.
And he can hang. He's got his own niche for sure. He's one of the most charismatic and one of the best promos in the whole world, not even just New Japan. So I think he's got a future for sure.
Hey, did you notice that last week Todd Martin wasn't talking shit about Juice?
No, yeah, starting to come around finally.
Yeah, so I think he's still shit talking Toru Yano, but and then Taguchi's his other common target, but Taguchi's not around right now, so Todd's been slightly less angry.
Right. So that's good for him. So we can move on to Yano and Naito. Tasty little treat for all of us here.
So the there's a lot of here's the thing about wrestling, right? Wrestling, even its best, is sort of like inherently silly. It's not like when you're caught up in the drama of it, like when you're caught up in the drama of like a 70-minute Omega Okada match, but it is like two guys or two gals in the ring in short pants pretending to fight. I mean, let's be honest, that's a little ridiculous, and I have loved this shit my entire life. So I don't always know that comedy has a place in wrestling, and then when you've got some promotions that want to try to be funny all the time, it just gets old. However, when it's like one spot on the card, I think it fits in just for a change of pace. So change of pace, Naito doing his tranquilo pose, early on in the match like he always does when he's faking the dive. Yano comes in the ring, stands behind Naito, who's down on the mat doing his pose, and just He does the Yano shrug.
Yeah, just one of those just awesome moments that you won't soon forget once you think back to this G1. Just something totally different, out there, wacky, and just lots of fun.
So Yano, and he was doing this last year too, and he's doing it in this tournament where he gets out the athletic tape and he'll tape somebody to something, or he'll tape their legs together. Well, Yano ends up getting himself taped to a barricade. The thinking from Naito is that, well, Yano can't get back in the ring in time. Well, it turns out he can.
Yeah, Yano drags the railing along with him back into the ring. So I don't know how he got it free from the other ones, but he was able to manage to get his way back in. And then some more fun little gimmickry. Naito takes the ever-present Yano DVDs that he's always hawking during his entrances, and takes the case and whacks Yano across the head with it. And then I'm pretty sure he tosses it out into the crowd afterwards. I don't know if it was, still functioning after that, but either way, it's a nice souvenir, whether it's, a working DVD or not after that.
So what's funny is, number one is that that somewhere in the world DVDs are still a thing. And then I love how, like, the rules of the universe function different in a Yano match, because getting hit with a DVD case or those big turnbuckle pads are like devastating maneuvers.
Mm-hmm. Which Rocky always likes to remind us that they have names too. And I don't know what their names are, but apparently Yano has named those big foam pads.
So do they each have different names, or is it just like a name that, like, one general name that he's made up?
I think one's Jimmy and one's I don't know. One's Steve or some shit. I don't know. They were all Anglo kind of names according to Rocky.
Okay.
So.
And sort of like Hiromu having a cat named Daryl.
Right. Yeah.
And then Daryl Jr. Actually, although I think Daryl Jr. should be called El Hijo de Daryl, but
yeah, that would make it a little bit more apropos, I think.
Well, especially because he's got the mask on.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a lucha. Yeah. El Gato Lucho. I don't know. You'd know Spanish better than I would.
I do, just because I've lived here for 13 years doesn't mean I've learned any Spanish.
Well, I took one semester in 7th grade, so.
Okay, I took 3 years in high school, and
yeah,
I skipped high school as much as possible.
Same.
So anyway, Naito ends up going over here with the Destino. There's some fuckery. Red Shoes gets a shirt pulled up over his head by Yano. Naito hits a low blow. And then after the match, Naito shit talks about being mistaken as Okada at the restaurant.
Yeah, nice little anecdote. You could tell that Naito was quite peeved by this whole deal. And just one of those, nice little character revealing moments where, after being claimed MVP twice, after having been the champion, having his own faction, some 7th grader at a family restaurant still got him, confused with Okada. And, he said it was his claim to, make people recognize the difference between him and Okada.
Did you see the video of Naito fist bumping the little boy while he was doing his entrance?
Yeah, that was an awesome moment, because that little kid was so nervous, like he's just mortified. And Naito's probably much like ODB, he's for the children. So
yeah, it's, if you haven't seen it, it's Naito's coming out, and there's this little kid who's really, really tiny little boy. And he kind of keeps ducking back behind his mom, but he had like an LIJ hat on, right?
Yeah, and he's looking real timid, real nervous.
So
Naito just kind of stops, stares at him. There's this kind of standoffish moment. Naito, tips the cap, gets down on one knee, and offers the fist bump to the little kid.
And I think actually the little boy put his fist out first.
Oh, did he? Okay.
I think that's why. I think I remember the little boy putting his fist out first. Naito gives him the fist bump, and then he does the tranquilo pose, and little boy does the tranquilo pose back, and then goes and hides behind his mom.
Yeah, that was an awesome moment, and you just can't help but love the guy even more when you see something like that.
Yeah, I mean, Naito's my favorite guy in New Japan right now, and it's sort of like it just gives you the warm fuzzies from a dastardly ingobernable like that, being for the children.
Yeah, for sure. Just because he's against the establishment and he follows his own rules doesn't mean that he's not not a man of strong moral fiber.
Indeed.
Somewhere deep down in that, yeah.
So next match we have IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, the best bout machine, Kenny Omega, taking on Zack Sabre Jr. Now, I thought this was surely going to be the match that Kenny Omega would lose.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Zack Sabre Jr. really had an answer for everything Omega tried in the match, and it really made you think, yeah, this is gonna be it. He's in some serious jeopardy all the way to the end.
Can I have my bad sportscaster moment right now?
Sure, go ahead.
Matt, how good is Zack Sabre Jr.? That's supposed to be like my John Gruden crossed with Vince McMahon or something, or Jesse Ventura,
okay.
But that's what a bad sportscaster would say. Instead of saying, wow, that guy's like really awesome. How good is he? Anyway, whatever. Zack Sabre.
I don't know why I pictured Jay Glazer when you did that, but I'll go with that.
It could have been too. I mean, because Jay Glazer is like a funny sports guy,
Yes. Go ahead.
So what so anyway, Sabre is just fucking amazing, dude. And the thing is, it's like, I feel like, you've got this character like where Sabre is actually sitting in the back, very like sitting on the back with like an iPad watching like crazy amounts of footage of everybody's matches. And he's probably got like Taka sparring with him in the gym, like Taka's doing like Omega's moves and Sabre's, working on his counters for him. Because that's the thing I love about it. And it's like, remember playing like No Mercy on the N64, and you're playing somebody that's like has really good timing and they can counter every one of your fucking moves. Mm-hmm. That's Zack Sabre Jr.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, that's a fun game. You could really probably make a character a lot like ZSJ in that game, because if you turn on that kind of submission style, you counter into really awesome submissions. So that's a really good comparison, actually.
I don't think there were enough of the MMA moves in there, although I think in like Virtual Pro 2, which was like the same series, I think that there were like more MMA guys in there, so you might be able to on that game.
Yeah, that game is sick. That's probably the best wrestling game ever made, for being perfectly honest. Well, more or less just like a palette swap of WrestleMania 2000, but with all the Japanese dudes. I think it was actually like an all Japan game, but like you had.
No, Virtual Pro was like multi-fed.
Well, okay.
No, actually, Virtual Pro I think Virtual Pro came out after No Mercy, so it actually had enhancements. And if I'm wrong about that, don't blow me up on Twitter. Just politely correct me.
Everybody's gonna be furious. People will be coming at your throat, dude.
So, here's one of my little gripes with Kenny. And, the guy's had how many, like, 5+ star matches at this point. But, okay, you can't escape. Like, Kenny, you've got him on your shoulders in a fireman's carry position. You shit talk a little bit, and you say you can't escape. And then you do the thing. Like, dude, they know it's coming. And as soon as you say you can't escape, well, shit, I'm going to escape because this motherfucker's going to moonsault me.
Right. And this time, you knew as soon as it happened that ZSJ was going to catch him into some kind of crazy submission. Because he does it every time somebody tries to do a senton or a splash or any kind of thing onto him like that. You knew it was coming.
Yeah, it's awesome because you've got Saber. You get Saber up on your shoulders. He's probably going to get you in a rear naked, or he's going to get you in like a cross arm breaker. You do a dive on him. He's gonna time it so he catches you right out of the air and get you in a triangle. Like I said, he'll do he took the One Wing Angel into a cross arm breaker, V trigger into a heel hook.
He's got answers for everything. He's got counters for counters for counters for days.
And
it's just, and for me, I can understand how somebody might not find it the most entertaining thing, but I think it's fantastic.
I mean, I'm trying to think. Oh, you know what it was? I think it might have been an NXT show I was at. Yeah, it was an NXT show I was at up in Fort Pierce. And it was Danny Burch and who the fuck is his tag team partner? Oni Lorcan. So Danny Burch and Oni Lorcan taking on Undisputed Era. Those guys can all four of those guys can wrestle, right? So they're just coming out doing some straight up like OG technical wrestling. And this crowd does not give two fucks. And I'm just like, dude, this is the best wrestling you're ever going to see. And you're just, I don't know, man. You're kind of just sitting there in your hands.
Yeah, that was one of those matches where I remember people had really mixed reviews on it. And like, I thought it was totally sick. So
you're talking about the one from TakeOver?
Yeah.
So this is
you're at the house show. That's right.
Yeah, this is at a house show.
It's
house show about a week before TakeOver. Right, 1 or 2 weeks before TakeOver, and Burch and Lorcan actually won clean.
Oh wow.
I actually thought for a sec I'd seen a title change at like a fucking house show in a gym in Fort Pierce, Florida, which I would have just popped crazy for, but no.
That would have been unexpected for sure.
So,
kind of like when Samoa Joe beat Finn for the title in like Lowell, Mass at a house show, and they only had like a one camera, footage of it. That was
the difference for that one at least is that's actually like one of the big house shows.
A touring show as opposed to Fort Pierce is just kind of
the central. There's the Central Florida circuit, which is just basically like. It's really just them trying to simulate like having a territory with a regular loop. Mm-hmm. So you get guys that aren't on TV and may never be on TV, or you'll see on TV in a couple months. Like I saw Patrick Clark multiple times as he was evolving the Velveteen gimmick.
Yeah, so that'd be cool to watch as somebody's really, figuring out their gimmick on the fly. That's pretty neat.
Well, if you're ever down here, we'll, maybe we can coincide it with a Fort Pierce show. I mean, it's, if you don't mind sitting in the car, 100 miles one way for 3 hours of, house show wrestling in a community center / high school gym.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I wouldn't be opposed to that.
There's actually something very authentic about it. So,
yeah, sounds cool.
So Kenny goes over in this match. He actually catches Saber in a cradle. Zach's shoulder is actually up, and he's kind of really sells at the end like, what the fuck just happened? That wasn't a pin, was it?
Right, and it's not really said explicitly, but yeah, you can really tell he's furious about this whole deal. And again, a guy comes into a match with 6 points. We still got, maybe 3 nights of block action left, and that's not enough because these guys are at the top are just so advanced, and, of course, Omega's undefeated, and it's going to be damn near impossible to keep up with that kind of pace.
Yeah, I mean, so. Kenny after this match is 6-0. So, I mean, and speaking of that, by the way, I mean, he's their world champion, and they've built to him being the champ for a long time now. And you look at where he was at Wrestle Kingdom 9 when he beat he beat Taguchi, right?
Mm-hmm. I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So he beat Taguchi, and you think about how far he's come since that day, because even at Wrestle Kingdom 9, it didn't seem to me, and it didn't seem to other people whose opinions I respect, that I think I remember Meltzer and Bruce Mitchell both talking about this, that like there's something he hasn't quite put together yet.
Right, and maybe that was just the cleaner character was kind of funny, and he and the Young Bucks were kind of doing the ironic thing a little bit heavier back then.
So that could have been it. He seemed very weird.
Right, and he still does have his kind of eccentric personality, but he's really put it all together and integrated it into being this best bout machine dude.
I think I heard Callis on Talk Is Jericho, it was, describe Omega as being like a cat, which the more you sort of watch Kenny and hear interviews with him, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
The difference is that Kenny seems like a world champion now. I mean, he looks like that belt belongs around his waist.
Mm-hmm. He carries himself as such too, including kind of having this cockiness and a little bit of heelish edge to his stuff.
It was yesterday. I was hanging out with my lady friend, and you and I were texting back and forth about the matches from yesterday, or I guess it's Saturday, 2 days ago, since it's officially Monday now. And so I'm like, babe, you mind if I put on a couple of these matches? Because I really want to see this stuff tonight. So I put it on. So I put on Omega and Ishii, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes. And so I'm kind of like trying to explain the characters to her so she kind of has some like context. And it was interesting trying to explain Kenny's character, because I was given the whole background as the cleaner, and I'm like, honestly, his character now is just that he's the best wrestler in the world. And that he's, as the best wrestler in the world, he is also the champion. He has like the top championship belt in the world now too.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And all the territory that comes with that, as far as being really protective and defensive over it. Yeah.
So moving on, the main event from night 12 is Hiroki Goto and Kota Ibushi.
Yeah, this was the show that was in Ibushi's hometown. He was really confident that he was going to come in and win the match for his home crowd, and deliver that and come back as the G1 champion next time they come through. So this match was really a great showcase for Ibushi. I was kind of hoping that Goto would step up the heelishness that we talked about last week, as far as something that would give him a little bit of depth of character and make him a little bit more interesting. But alas, we didn't really get too much of that in this match. But we did get a really awesome match, regardless.
I mean, let's be clear. Goto has had a hell of a tournament. It's actually a little bit of a down year from him in terms of like winning, because a couple years ago he met Kenny in the finals. I still think he had a really solid year last year too. So he's having a great tournament. He's showing fire. So I want to make sure I give him full credit, because I do openly admit, I'm like, I know he's good. I'm just not that into him. But I want to give the guy props.
Yeah. He pulls out the Shoten Kai in this match, one of my favorite moves in all of wrestling. I feel like it should be his finisher, but it's not. And that was only good for a 2 count in this match. And then, alas, Ibushi ends up making good on his word. Comes out with a V-trigger of his own, a last ride, and a Kamigoye for the win.
Or maybe I'm thinking of another match, because he hit a Bomaye in one of the matches.
He did, yeah. I think that was the...
Oh, that was the Naito match.
Most recent match. It was the Naito match.
The Naito match when he hit the... Okay, right. They're not dissimilar moves or anything, but...
Right. but still, yeah. So yeah, Bushi made good on his word. Promised to come back as the G1 champ, and we'll see how that goes.
And
Yeah,
actually,
he's definitely on the cusp.
and let's make obviously we're going to do a little bit of we're going to map out some scenarios when when we get finished, but yeah, I starting to think that the likelihood of Kota Ibushi walking out of this tournament as champion is not unlikely.
Yeah, I would not be shocked in the slightest.
So let's move on to night 13, which is in Fukuoka.
Or as Carl Anderson used to always say, "Fuck you, Okaya."
Aha, Machine Gun.
Mm-hmm. I miss him. I miss the. It's kind of like that Kanye West song. I miss the old Kanye. I miss the old Gunka.
You know what, dude? I don't want to fucking get on another fucking WWE rant over here. Like, dude, I don't expect Gallows to be like a top guy. Gallows should be like the big guy in a tag team. That's kind of what he's set to be. That's cool. But and the thing is Carl Anderson is a guy that Vince McMahon's not going to get. But I don't know, man. I feel like he could be maybe if not like a world title guy, fucking Anderson would be an IC title, never title, US title guy in New Japan right now.
Yeah, that's a piece that they in New Japan really were able to capitalize on you as well, and it's just a shame that it's just being put to waste. Kind of, he's definitely probably living his best life, making a lot of money, but
let me be clear when I bemoan these things, it's listen. I want to see good wrestling out of wrestlers I like. If Carl Anderson's living his good life and he's making a ton of money and he's setting himself up for the rest of his life, dude, awesome for him. I don't begrudge him for that. Would I love to be seeing killer matches out of him, a couple times a month? Yeah, but you know what? Whatever's best for him, man.
Right. Agreed.
So coming into night 13, you've got a four-way tie. It's Switchblade Evil, Minoru Suzuki, and Kazuchika Okada are all tied up at 8, and they're all 2 points behind Tanahashi with 10, and that's basically Tana has one loss at that point, and that's to Switchblade.
Yeah, and I don't think that's an insignificant point to make, so that's going to have implications coming into the end. That'll be very interesting down the stretch here. So you got the first match coming out of this is Elgin versus Fale. Again, just a little bit of that that fuckery.
Elgin's injured. He has a legit biceps injury. Probably a biceps tear. So he's Elgin's going to be having a hard time for a while.
Yeah. This match ends up having a blatant DQ. Tama Tonga runs in with a chair and just beats the hell out of Elgin with it. A bunch of young lions get the brunt of the chair shots as well. Tom is targeting that bad arm. It's just ugly. It's just pointless. It's just done.
So next match we have Togi Makabe and Hangman Page, or as the crowd likes to call him and the commentator likes to call him Pagey.
Yes. Fun little bit there. So yeah, this match again, not really the most significant because neither of these guys have a chance of winning at this point. But again, kind of just a display of Hangman and what he can do. A guy like Makabe is going to be more than content to put a younger dude over. Hangman hits that awesome deadlift pump handle fall away slam. Looks sick. Ends up flipping out of a German suplex from Makabe and hits a super kick. Hits the buckshot lariat and the rite of passage for the win.
I mean, good on Hangman. He's having a strong end to the tournament. Like, I feel like it's sort of it's setting up big things for him later. I actually think rest of this year in both New Japan and Ring of Honor, you'll see big things out of Hangman.
Yeah, he's all on the rise. The momentum's all going forward for sure.
Next match, we've got Jay White, Yoshihashi. We've got some. Obviously, this is a Chaos versus Chaos match. You've got Rocky has continued to be really upset with White during the whole tournament. White goes over with the Blade Runner, as you would expect. Of course, there's a low blow.
Yeah, low blow. Again, we have the running theme of White just chucking his opponents into the guardrail right in front of the English broadcast table. And
that's like a gimmick now. And
yeah.
And I'm wondering if it's, you kind of wonder, is it because, it's obviously because of the JR incident, but is it because, well, this got heat because he fucked up JR and then he about got his ass whipped by Josh Barnett legit. So they're working on heat, or is it like, I almost wonder if there's not like some subtle ribbing there because, well, JR doesn't exactly do the most amazing job of calling this product.
Yeah, that's a very apt point to make as well. Regardless, I think it's working, and Kelly and Rocky both do a great job of selling it. Just the outrage. They really added the broadcast at this point in particular.
Well, because there was, you had one night earlier in the show where they actually ended up off the air for, there was no commentary for a long time.
Yeah, and that was Jay White versus Fale, so that was kind of painful to watch without any sound for a while. Because I think Fale ended up getting on offense afterwards, and he just like putting the boots to White and just kind of standing on him. And
I actually think I fell asleep.
Typical boring Fale offense, and it's just like, oh god.
So next match we have, this is a big one for this night. You have Tanahashi and Evil.
Yeah, and what a murderer's row that Evil's got to face in those last three matches. He's got Tanahashi in this match, then Okada, then Suzuki. So he earned those 8 points, but he's going to have to really earn anything additional at the end of this tournament. So it's a tough row to hoe.
And, well, the beginning of the Murderer's Row does not go well to Evil. Tana goes over when he actually counters the Everything is Evil with one of his own and then hits his high fly flow for the win. What did you think about this match?
It was really good. It was a little bit more than I would have expected, honestly. Evil shows some really good athleticism early on. He hits this awesome seated senton. He gets like some really mad hops off of that, and each guy is just doing their thing, hitting all their signature spots. That finishing sequence was pretty awesome. With Tanahashi hitting that STO, they kind of go back and forth, trying to hit signature spots, and it ends up working out in Tanahashi's favor.
Tanahashi, again, continuing to have a hell of a tournament. Almost seems, he's beat up. He's definitely beat up, and he's an old man like me, 41 years old. But it also feels like there's a little bit of, I don't know if to say that he seems revitalized, but yeah, you know what? That's how I'll describe it. He seems a little, revitalized.
Yeah, it's tough to say what exactly it is that's done it, but I agree. It's not like he's really added anything tangible. Like he hasn't added new moves to his moveset. He's,
dude, it's fucking Hiroshi Tanahashi, man. I think that's.
I know, but just trying to put the analyst cap on, it's kind of hard to pinpoint what exactly it is that's been kind of revamped. But yeah, he's doing great things.
It's one of those things where it's like, Tana can move back a step a little bit and, maybe have the IC title or be involved in a secondary feud and then just like turn it back on and step forward. It's like, it's like a dude like Jericho. Like every time Jericho pops up somewhere, he's going to be different and reinvent himself. And it's like Tana. I think Tana is just going to be Tana until the end of time.
Yeah. He's he's not lost a step yet. So
he's going to walk into that ring, pull that robe off, do it slow so everybody checks out the 6-pack.
Yeah.
Throw the little hand symbol up. By the way,
flip that pretty hair around.
By the way, in case everybody hasn't noticed, so if you don't go to our website or our Twitter, you wouldn't see it. We actually got some new artwork done for the podcast. Now, you've probably seen our new logo, which is a completely awesome anime version of me and Matt. But we have a cool illustration that we're using for the header on the website that is Akira Toriyama style drawings of Kenny, Tana, Okada, and Naito.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. I don't think it could have turned out any better.
It was actually a young lady in Brazil drew that for us, and she did a really fabulous job, and I'm really hoping I can hire her to do some more stuff in the future, because when I was explaining what I wanted, and I specifically said I wanted drawings in the style of Toriyama, and the response was, well, I'm a huge Dragon Ball fan, and I'm like, well, here's a picture of me, here's a picture of my co-host, and here's the 4 wrestlers I'd like cartoon versions of. Have at it.
Yeah, it turned out, like I said, about as well as anybody could have asked for. So, fantastic stuff.
Agreed. Main event for night 13 is Kazuchika Okada and Minoru Suzuki. Another big match with these two tied, both of them trailing Tanahashi and not really in a position where they can fall behind anymore.
Yeah, and this is one where, you kind of got to worry about Okada early on. Yeah, it's hard to imagine him losing a match to even a guy as tough as Suzuki when he got this big of stakes, but Suzuki really dominated early on. And, all the brawling outside with the chair shots, he drapes the guardrail over over Okada, and bashes him with the chair. He works over Okada's arm. He's pulling out all the stops and in his own Suzuki way, and just being a sadistic bastard, just really laying in these hard shots and smiling and laughing in Okada's face as he's just beating the hell out of him.
By the way, for what it's worth, there's sort of a history of these two when they wrestle of Suzuki dominating. In fact, when they did the match, the title match, when when Suzuki-gun came back from Noah, I mean, they had a match like that.
Yeah, that was a great run in Okada's. Our great match in Okada's run to really put him over as a strong champ, because Suzuki was being crazy sadistic. I think he was really targeting Okada's legs in that match, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, there was one leg that was just like completely fucked.
Yeah, just really putting it to him, and that just made Okada look like a god, just the amount of resiliency that he was able to display to pull that one out. And same thing in this match. I mean, I remember the call being 10 minutes, almost 15 minutes into the match before Okada really got some solid offense in. So
one of the things
he really dominated.
One of the big things I've been digging out of Okada in this tournament, and I mean, maybe I'd missed it before, but I've really been noticing him doing it a lot, is that shotgun drop kick. He's been doing it running, he's been doing it diving, and it's like a really, normally don't think of a drop kick as a cool move anymore, right? And then, like, when I first started watching New Japan, one of the first things you notice is this crazy drop kick that Okada does, and they build the matches up to it. And now he's just got this vicious fucking drop kick where he kind of just loads those legs up and just, slams into his opponent.
Yeah, and really, the opponents just fly ass over tea kettle when he does it too. It's crazy, the amount of momentum he gets out of it. It's pretty wild.
So Okada ends up going over here. He counters a gotch into a tombstone, discus rainmaker, and rainmaker for the finish.
Yeah, Okada actually hit a gotch style tombstone in the match as well. Little insult to injury type of move there as well, leading up to the pair of rainmakers for the victory.
So that moves us on to night 14 of B Block action, and this is in Osaka, which is the really, really hot city for New Japan.
Both figuratively and literally. Those guys are sweating bullets out there in the summer heat.
And well, I mean, they're in a gymnasium.
Yeah. And who knows, with all the people in there, if the AC is even worth a damn. So, yeah.
So the night starts off with Toru Yano and Sonata. Quick match ends up with a count out. Sonata ends up basically putting both Yano and Rocky into Paradise Locks.
Yeah, the gifable moment coming out of this was Sonata putting Rocky in the Paradise Lock and then putting the headset back on him. And Rocky's, I don't know if he was legit, straining his voice or if it was just, put on because he was in that position, but he sounded like he was in real agony after that, and it was really entertaining stuff.
It was funny because he sounded desperate, and he shouldn't have got involved, so he kind of got what was coming to him.
Right, and that was lots of fun. Kevin Kelly was razzing him about it afterwards, and yeah, it was a fun little moment. Both of these guys are out of contention, so they may as well just go out there and have as fun a match as they can possibly have.
And then Rocky's sort of that he's sort of that, for the lack of a better term, that spunky little pal of yours that wants to come in and kick somebody's ass, but he just ends up getting his ass kicked.
Right. Yeah, I'm trying to think of an analog for that, but it's escaping me at this point.
He's kind of like Krillin right now.
Yeah, that's fair.
He's Cuban Krillin.
We should tell him that can be his new Twitter handle.
Yeah, he can have another alternate identity to go along with El Chico Luchador.
Right. Yeah, you can also monetize that with a nice new pro wrestling tees design.
I was gonna say, Rocky, we got that one for you for free. Not that you need help from us making money off of merch, but
yeah, knock yourself out.
So, but that one was a free because we love you, buddy. So Goto and Tama Tonga, we've got more fuckery here. The match actually got screwed up too. So somebody fucked up at ringside. Basically, the fun moment is that I think Marty Asami was the ref, and he gets pulled out and gets beat up by Fale. So Red Shoes ends up running in, and Tama has Goto covered, and everybody, they're the Tongans are pushing Red Shoes to count. Red Shoes just sort of looks around and he flips him off and calls for the DQ.
As he should. Yeah, this kind of thing makes you think too that they should probably have a couple refs for all these matches that the Tongans are in. That should just be the standard now.
So, anyway, basically a wasted match. The fun part was Red Shoes flipping somebody off, which, again, Red Shoes always has quite a bit of sass in him, so it's entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we said, as far as refs go, he's probably the top one in the game currently. So good for him.
Which takes us to Juice Robinson and Zack Sabre Jr. They mention on this match that Juice's hand is no longer broken, but he's still wearing the brace to be safe. Very typical Zack Sabre Jr. match with him countering everything. And so explain this move that Juice taps. Well, he doesn't tap out. He has to verbally submit to.
Yeah, it's something crazy. So the first thing that Sabre does is he gets an omoplata on, I think it was the bad arm, the left arm for Juice. Then he reaches over, gets the right arm trapped behind his back with the legs. So, Juice has got both his arms behind his back, touching his elbows together damn near, if not literally. If that's not enough, ZSJ then uses his arms to grab a heel hook, and he's pretty much kissing his knees as his arms are behind his back, and there's really no way for him to get out of that or even attempt to do anything other than verbally tap. So that's what he had to do.
And apparently ZSJ has named this move.
Yes, there was a GIF of the move that a fan posted, and ZSJ retweeted the GIF and captioned it "Cremation Lily."
See, I would like it if he would work the name of another grindcore band into this hold.
Job for a Cowboy.
That's not grind.
Fucking, I just wanted to come up with the funniest thing I could. So
Jesus fucking Christ. You could call it like, instead of cremation lily, you could call it carcass lily. This carcass was originally grind, so.
Yeah. So this, the whole. Story.
No, I'm sorry, dude. The show's ruined for me now. You fucking mentioning job for a cowboy. I'm just.
Troll life.
Yeah. You know what? I'm glad I'm leaving the country for 2 weeks and you're doing the show on your own. Just fine. Fine, Matt. So, right. So, yesterday, like I said, I'm hanging out with my lady friend, and you're texting me, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to watch this match later. And then I go on to either Facebook or Twitter, and you had shared a screenshot from this match. Basically, you're super hyped about it, talking about how we're going to be reviewing it on the show. And I see a picture of Kenny Omega on the floor with blood pouring out of his mouth. And I'm like, oh shit, I need to watch this right now.
Yeah, I tried to keep it as ambiguous as possible. I didn't think I was really spoiling anything with that, other than that he got his ass beat.
Well, I knew that Kenny had a loss coming up, and after he beat Sabre, I knew Ishii was going to win this match.
Yeah. This was another thing too, and we talk about the commentary. Down the stretch in this match, Kevin Kelly, was shouting about how Kenny Omega is unbeatable. And, if this was a WWE moment, you'd be like, okay, that totally telegraphs that he's going to lose this match. But, with Kevin Kelly, he's such an earnest, kind of milquetoast dude that, you really take it with a little bit more gravity, a little bit more seriousness. So, when he did end up finally losing this match, it really, that kind of commentary really helps it out, as far as the gravity of the loss itself.
Well, yeah. So normally that would be something that telegraphs it. I don't think that Kevin and Rocky know the finishes, though. I'm actually very certain they don't know the finishes.
Yeah, there's no reason for them to know the finishes. That they should really try to call this as straight up as possible. So
I don't quite know where to rank this match, because this has been a year and a tournament of crazy matches. I still think my favorite from this tournament is Ibushi and Ishii, as sick and violent as that was. What's interesting is I start hearing these conversations about match of the year, and I don't think there's any question that match of the year is Omega Okada, but it's almost sort of like, well, it's actually almost like not fair. So let's put that over to the side, and then we'll pick another match of the year, because we already know what the match of the year is. And it's sort of like, it's like how LeBron James should be MVP every year, but at a certain point, like, somebody else gets voted, because it's just like, how many fucking times are you going to name LeBron James MVP?
Right. Yeah, it's really yeah, it's really not fair to anybody else in the league at that point, even though he's clearly in a league of his own. So
He's in such a league of his own that he figured that he would go to an even shittier franchise.
yeah, that's going to be an interesting little mix to see how that goes.
So let's go to a team that doesn't really have a ton of talent, doesn't seem to have their shit together, and is in a brutal fucking conference. Okay.
Yeah, ought to be an interesting challenge for him.
So, this match, again, everybody's kind of freaking out about it. It was pretty brutal and stiff, crazy violent match. They both end up busted, like their mouths end up busted open. Like Ishii had a crazy fat lip. And, Kenny ends up with a mouthful of blood because Ishii, quite by accident, ends up basically clobbering Kenny in the face with one of those nasty lariats.
Yeah. The following night, Omega looked like he had definitely had stitches on his lip there. And it still was pretty fresh wound. So that was pretty raunchy. For me, that the main thing that I take away from this is just the ungodly amount of punishment that Ishii takes, and as I'm watching it, I'm thinking there's no way he's going to win. It's just a matter of what's it going to finally take for him to stay down.
So it's kind of
up until the last couple minutes where he has that huge flurry, where I'm thinking, oh my god, he might actually win. And it's a really great story as far as that goes.
So sort of a fun moment. Well, first of all, one of the moves that Kenny did that I really liked is that springboard double foot stomp where Ishii's hanging off the apron.
Yeah, that was followed or set up by a brutal looking V trigger, like that knocked Ishii halfway off the apron. That was that looked like a concussion blow.
Yeah, and then so I'm watching the match with Shantae, and she's wrestling is like a completely new thing to her, and I think that the way these matches go, it's like it's pretty easy to follow, but I'm sort of explaining the whole idea of doing another guy's finisher. So Ishii ends up doing the one-winged angel.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of like explaining how like how that's sort of like, I'm trying to think how do you actually explain that in wrestling terms? It's almost like it's like a little bit of one-upsmanship.
Yeah, sign of of I don't want to say necessarily disrespect, but definitely an air of Well, I think one-upsmanship is a good word for it.
So later that night, we're watching a TV show, and it's like an action thing going on in the show. A guy gets disarmed, has a pistol, and he gets disarmed and gets pistol whipped with his own gun. And I'm like, you see, that's the equivalent of somebody doing your finisher in wrestling.
Yeah, that's a really fair comparison for sure.
And then she says, "You know what? I was thinking the exact same thing." So it's like I've already got the wrestling worm into her brain.
Good job.
Yeah, yeah. So anything else you want to add on this match? I mean, this again, it was. We know Ishii's amazing. I mean, we're both big fans of his. He's fucking incredible, and he's one of those guys that he was never intended to be in the spot that he's in. But the fans are behind him so much, and he puts on so many good performances, is like, how can you not at least give him the shot? And by the way, with him winning this match, I think you're going to see a big main event later this year that is Omega and Ishii. So it's going to be maybe not, well, you got the Destruction. It's 3 nights. You've got King of Pro Wrestling, and you've got Power Struggle, still this year.
Yeah, that'll be great. And, the last year's G1 match that they had where Ishii won, and this one, the match that they had in the U.S. title tournament, like it's all going to culminate in a really awesome main event here in the near future.
So
and one more thing, just real quick. I can't disparage anybody for any of the work that they've done, but I gotta put Ishii as my MVP of the tournament so far.
Yeah, you know what? I can't disagree with that. That's actually a bit of a tough call to make, just because so many guys have stepped it up so much. But yeah, Ishii's had a crazy tournament.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like I think I mentioned this last week. It just the performances that he gets out of his opponents, and um, you know, not necessarily going to win these matches, but he's going to push these dudes to really fantastic matches no matter what. And I think that it's really invaluable.
All right, so as if that match was not enough for night 14, the evening is capped off with Naito and Ibushi in just another absolutely insane match where essentially the guys seemed like they were trying to kill one another.
Yeah. Yeah. The main thing that I think of is the moves that Naito hits that just target Ishii's neck. He hits a package tombstone, follows it up with Gloria, like the little reverse pump handle slam that he does. That usually kind of lands on the back, but he really gets a high angle on it and just drives his neck into the mat. And then a draping neck breaker off the top rope. And Ibushi sells those moves like he's just dead, absolute death. And Red Shoes has to stop Naito and make him back off to check on him. So that's a really huge moment in the match, and it's not even really halfway through the match. Things really escalate even further from there. So that's just an idea of what we're getting when we get these two guys.
So Ibushi goes over here. This is the match where he hits the Bomaye and then ends up following it up with the Kamigoye. So Naito has falls behind a little bit. So what is it? Naito with 10, Ibushi with 10, Kenny with 12. Naito though has loses the tiebreakers against the other two guys. And Ibushi and Kenny meet on the last night.
Yeah, so there's we'll get further into the scenarios, but that's not looking too bright for Mr. Naito there.
So night 15, I'm going to speed through some of these a little bit to jump kind of to the important matches. Yoshihashi and Fale, typical Tongan fuckery. Tama, I don't know what the fuck's like. Tama actually ends up going into the crowd. Is actually like attacks a fan. Obviously, it has to be a work, and even if it's a work, I would prefer them to not do that stuff. But then what I liked about Yoshi, and this is the most fire I think I've ever seen him show, he actually ends up chasing Tama down.
Yeah, to no avail, but
yeah,
at least he ran out there and sold that he was not happy with the way that things went.
Page and Suzuki. Hangman actually goes over here. He counters out of the gotch into a rite of passage. Very, very big win for Hangman, and like I said, he's having a strong sort of end to the tournament.
Yeah, he hits an awesome moonsault off the stage onto Suzuki and Desperado. This is probably the biggest victory for him of the tournament. Really kind of just a display of what he can do, kind of a coming out party of sorts. So really cool for him.
And I would expect probably sets up another like singles match between these two later on.
Yeah, that was really cool. Really good stuff. I love how Page just goes full bore at Suzuki as soon as he hits the ring. Like he knows that he's either going to jump the guy or get jumped by the guy. When he goes into a match with Suzuki. So that was a smart strategy and really hit off the match in with a bang with a nice brawl there. So it was really cool.
So we have Togi Makabe and Jay White. Switchblade goes over here. Typical fuckery. The ref gets fucked with. We have a chair shot. Blade Runner for the win. And then White ends up just sort of brutally and unnecessarily beating up a young lion. And Rocky's pissed, but, there's nothing he can do about it.
Yeah. White being his typical congenial self, flipping off the crowd, spitting in the crowd's general direction, just, being a total prick. So, what would you expect? It's Makabe, so of course White's going to go over.
Then we have Hiroshi Tanahashi and Michael Elgin. Really good match. Elgin's a trooper out there with the torn biceps. This is what you would expect from these two guys, and by that I mean it's a killer match. Unfortunately, the ending was botched. It was supposed to be a Tana countering out of an Elgin bomb into a small package cradle type situation. I don't know what happened, but it looked like maybe Tana lost grip on the way down. So then Tana's on the mat, and Elgin actually leans down into him to get cradled.
Yeah, just kind of sloppy looking, but understandable considering the circumstances.
What I really liked about the match is that they're standing face to face at the end, and Elgin wants to shake hands, but then Tana actually wants to do like the a Tanahashi handshake.
Yeah, these guys have history. They teamed together in the World Tag League before, so obviously the respect is there, and there's no reason not to be proud of the performance that they put on there. That was really awesome despite everything.
And in the main event, we have got Okada versus Evil. Anything you want to, Okada goes over here, but anything you want to, say about this?
So an interesting little point. Backstage before this event, the previous show, Evil told the press in the backstage thing that he had something new in store for this match, and I think what he was referring to was the Red Shoes assisted Magic Killer on Okada.
And the commentator is really hyping that up too. That's something that he had to have had planned.
Yeah, interesting little bit. Evil's not opposed to using the ref to his advantage in a match. He's done it several different ways, and this is just one more means for him to do so. It's pretty cool. Another thing is, I think I've made this joke before, but we haven't been active for a while, so maybe this will be new to some people. I doubt you've seen the Lego Movie.
What was funny is actually somebody else was talking to me about the Lego Movie this weekend, but continue.
So the main theme song to the Lego Movie is "Everything Is Awesome." So when Okada hits the Rainmaker, or hits the "Everything Is Evil" of his own, Kevin Kelly says it in sort of a sing-songy fashion. So he goes, "Everything is evil," and it just reminded me of the theme song to the Lego Movie. And it made me kind of chuckle inside.
So, what's tell us a finishing sequence for this?
So there's lots of back and forth. Each guy is really trying for their signature moves, and eventually Okada is able to hit the Discus Rainmaker and the Rainmaker for the win. Lots of back and forth there. The ripcord effect that both guys have in the moves really played into the finish really well. I like how they did that back and forth.
And this is another match where I felt like Okada was really vicious. Nasty streak to him. You had a really couple of brutal drop kicks. You had had that really really strong DDT onto the ramp. This is, like I said, this is what we've talked about earlier. This is a different Okada in this tournament.
Yeah, and Evil really brings it out of him too. Yeah, he's got that that kind of style as well. That kind of almost sadistic edge to his stuff. So
Yeah, Evil absolutely has a sadistic edge.
yeah, really, really good stuff.
So, Maddie, predictions. Tell me what you got lined up for A block.
Okay, A block. I think it's a little bit more clear because we only have one night of block action left, and I'm gonna go kind of out on a limb here, a little bit of a novelty. So I'm thinking that it's pretty easy bet that Switchblade's gonna be Evil in his final block match, and then that leaves Okada being out of contention for the block. Then Okada's left in a position sort of precariously where he can either, kind of throw the match or, lose or draw to Tanahashi, which would send Tanahashi to the finals, or he can beat Tanahashi, which would end up sending Switchblade to the final. So he's got his greatest rival on one hand, who, he's obviously not going to want to lose to in any situation. And he's also got this thorn in his side prick bastard who's, really throwing a wrench in his game and trying to take over his stable. So kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, if you will. So what I think is going to happen in this scenario is that the match is going to come right down to the wire. We're going to have, countdown, 30 seconds, 10 seconds, and then we're going to have a Switchblade run in. And he's just going to beat the hell out of Tanahashi with a chair to ensure that Okada wins and he goes to the finals. And then that's going to infuriate Okada to no end, and that'll lead to them having a feud in the coming months.
Okay. You want my prediction for A, or you want to do both of your blocks first?
No, go for it, yeah.
I actually think that Evil's going to go over on Switchblade and setting up Okada and Tanahashi as the decider. I actually think Tana's going to go over, and I'll explain why in a minute. But I could actually see a scenario similar to what you spelled out, that actually where you have a situation where Switchblade does run in, but Switchblade actually attacks Okada and costs him the match, and then you still have something going forward with those two. But I think Tana's going over and going to the finals.
Okay.
And
I can see that as well.
And then, and I'll explain why I think that on the other end. So, and then talk about what you got going on on B block.
Okay, so for B block, I think it's a little bit murkier. We have 2 nights of block action left for these guys. I'll tell you what I think is going to happen, and then I'll tell you what I really want to happen. So I think Tonga is going to end up beating Ibushi due to some fuckery, as usual. I think Yano's going to beat Omega, similarly due to his little shenanigans, and then that'll leave Naito in a scenario where he can either win out and win the block with 14 points if Omega and Ibushi go to a draw, which would lead Omega with 13 points. So that's his scenario. That's kind of his only way in. And then I think Sonata's going to beat Naito. I think that's going to be the big spoiler, and Sonata and Naito will end up having a feud there as well. I think that this has been a common theme that we've had running through New Japan in general in the last few months, is these factions really crumbling and being in a state of flux. So I think that it's kind of these parallel stories that we have going on. I think that's what's going to happen there. And then from there, I think that we're going to have Ibushi beat Omega to take the block, and they'll have their rematch either if Ibushi wins the whole thing at the Tokyo Dome, or if Ibushi loses in the finals, they'll have another fall matchup.
So I definitely agree that Sonata is going to end up beating Naito. They're setting that up anyway, and it is time to shake up the factions in New Japan. It all sort of needs to be reshuffled at this point. However, I've sort of crafted a scenario in my head that I think is likely, but I can't say, or that it is feasible. I can't say that it's likely because there's so much in play. So the second half of the scenario that I'm crafted is that Omega actually goes to the finals. And you have Omega and Tanahashi in the finals. And I think they may have feuded over the IC title at one point a couple years ago. But those two have not really done a major program. And I actually think that may be the program going into Wrestle Kingdom. And that could be Omega winning and actually challenging Tana to another match after beating him, because Omega wins and he can presumably pick his own opponent, or there's another match later on in the fall to pick the opponent, or Tana ends up winning. And not only does he win the G1, but he's got to win over the reigning world heavyweight champion. I do not see Yano beating Omega, and I really hope not. Yano, I actually didn't like it when Kenny was doing the funny stuff with Yano last year, because I'm like, dude, this is like, even you knew then a year ago that Kenny was like a future world champion. I'm like, dude, you shouldn't be doing this stuff. It's one thing when it's somebody else. It's one thing like when, Sonata, who's still climbing the card, does something goofy, but I don't think Omega should be.
Yeah, I just, I think we talked about that last year and had a difference of opinion. I think that it's okay, when we step into Yano's world, that you do it under his rules, and just having a kind of a knowledge of the meta aspect. Omega loves his ironic wrestling. He has the DDT background.
I mean, it's fair enough. It's like when you have a Deadpool comic, things get played by Deadpool rules, and you can break the fourth wall or whatever. I got it. I would rather that Omega didn't, but
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I also I gotta mention I want Naito to win. Like I want him to beat Sonata. I want him to go to the finals. I want him to win the whole tournament because he's my favorite dude. But I totally think that Ibushi's gonna take it all in the way that I previously mentioned. It kind of reminds me too, like one thing I wanted to mention and forgot to about when Ibushi and Naito faced off is, I'm watching this match. It's really great, but I was disappointed because I wanted Naito to win so bad, and it's so fun to be able to still have that feeling as a wrestling fan after all these years, to just totally get immersed in it and want your guy to win. It's just they're doing a great job with this stuff when that comes out.
This has been, with the exception of the Tonga fuckery, this has been, I think, a really exquisitely booked tournament. There definitely is part of me that thinks that Ibushi is going to end up winning this. The thing is because, by the way, Omega and Ibushi is an amazing main event whenever you decide to do it. I actually think they need to hold off on that a little bit. That I think Wrestle Kingdom might be too soon for it. And on top of that, dude, Ibushi's a freelancer. I don't know that they're going to put a freelancer in the main event at Wrestle Kingdom.
Is he still? Was that confirmed?
Yeah, he's still a freelancer.
Okay. I think that I think he's going to do it. I think it's going to happen sooner than later.
Well, we've got 3 big nights of block action left. 2 nights for B block, 1 night for A block, and then on Sunday, next Sunday is the final. I think this is this is actually the first time that I have actually followed this, day for day, really staying caught up on the matches. I definitely fell behind last year, and it was a little tougher last year with there not being English commentary, and a lot of nights there were single camera setups. This has been exhilarating, and I really can't wait for next week's matches and for us to do a show like, Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. I don't know. I probably don't think that we'll do much aside from the final match from that final card. You know, we have lots of B block and A block action to cover still. So between that and just the final match itself, I think we'll have plenty to dig into.
There could be a couple interesting title matches on the finals. I mean, maybe the Bucks will be back or whatever. But yeah, I mean, you basically, yeah, next week we'll hit the key matches from the block action, and then probably spend quite a bit of time talking about the final and then what that leads into for the rest of the year. So then that's what we got for today, Maddie. You got anything you want to plug before we head out?
Yeah, well, you know, we'll talk about the pertinence as far as the social medias. So my Twitter is at albino buddha, ALBINO_BUDDHA. Instagram is ThompsonMR90, and Facebook is facebook.com/maddmatt, madd.matt.t. And yeah, that's all I got.
You can find us online at flying.gaijin.bombcast.com. Twitter is FGBombcast, Flying Gaijin Bombcast on Facebook. And I want to thank, I guess I'll thank myself and my band for the theme song we're using. This is Surreality by Northern Crown, and you can check my band out at northerncrownband.com. Thank you for listening to everybody, and we will see you next week.
I see the colors you don't see running down the wall. Infinity between spaces, unfamiliar sights and thoughts.